Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name's Grace.
My name's Eden.
And we are the founders of the anti-abortion platform, Abortion, It's a Black and White Issue. But today we are joined by a very special guest, Josep, who is a member of Life Society Edinburgh, which is one of the many pro-life university societies now in the UK.
At the moment, we're seeing a rise in pro-life university activism, which is amazing. However, during our outreach in Edinburgh, Grace and I have noticed a lot of negative reactions when dialoguing in the streets with members of the public. So we're quite interested to hear what your experience have been like at university. And before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you guys in the middle of lockdown. My name's Josep. I'm from Barcelona originally in Spain. I came to Edinburgh University to study 3 years ago. So that means I have 1 year left, which, one does not say lightly. And as soon as I arrived in university, one of the first people that I met was the president at the time of the ProLife Society. We met at the Freshers' Fair. And after that, for a while, I was not too involved. But as soon as I saw that more people were needed to take up the cause in the university, I decided to affiliate myself more seriously. So it's been a really incredible couple of years working in the front line of this issue.
That's amazing. So, Josep, what is it that's made you so passionately pro-life?
Well, I think that to a degree, I have always been quite drawn to taking the side of people who are undervalued by society and who are, for one reason or another, being poorly treated by their neighbors and particularly by those in power. And when I was in my early teenage years, I very sadly lost a brother to a miscarriage. And speaking to my mother at the time, she made me realize something I had not thought about before properly, that there were people who did not consider my lost brother, who at the time, was a trimester and a half into the pregnancy, a person. And and in a way, since that moment, I felt like my pain, my grieving, and particularly my mother's grieving at the loss of that family member did not count, did not matter, because society did not value those people as human beings. So that led me to try to learn more, read more about the topic of pro-life, of particularly how it relates to other societal issues. And when I took up my faith more seriously and I came here to Edinburgh University to study theology, it just all came together, really. But I think the genesis of my passion for this particular issue is my understanding. It gets lost when I think about the fact that some people consider unborn humans not to be humans or not to be persons. And having seen in first person just how sad and troubling and hurtful it can be to lose someone that age, before they're born, I think it's an issue worth speaking about.
Oh, wow. That's really amazing. And very, very sad to hear that, you got your views from such a terrible event, but so brave of your mum and you to step up and fight for the unborn. Can you tell us a bit about your university society? When was it affiliated and what are its main aims?
Yes, of course. So we affiliated about 10 years ago, roughly. It was an effort led by some people who are coming from mainly the Catholic Student Union and who wanted to raise awareness, not just of abortion, but the issue of life and how we value life in our society more generally. And since then, the focus has been, on how we treat the unborn, but also the elderly, people who are dying. Very sadly, at the end of my first year at university, so that was 2 years ago, we became the university decided, rather the student union of the university decided to de-affiliate us on a technical ground that we, our president at the time, forgot to submit the paper. And after that, they held on to that particular technicality to disaffiliate us. And when I myself leading the charge, but myself and some friends decided to affiliate again, following the whole process, getting the signatures and the members and so on and so forth. We were told that the official USA line and USA policy on this issue was that the university was a pro-choice safe space, and so our existence was not deemed necessary for the student body. So technically, as of now, we are no longer a university recognized decision. At the time, we were trying to decide whether to take this issue to court or just try again next year. And because of the complications that would have come from fighting it on legal terms, which looking at St. Andrews or Glasgow, as you guys know, we would have definitely won because it was the same case. It's become a textbook case here in Scotland. But just so much work would have gone into that. We are going to now affiliate ourselves again, if the university is open, of course, which is another issue in the upcoming month. I think that the only thing to say about our society is that we are very interestingly, I think, we have great relations with people from all across the student body. We've had very fascinating events with the Atheist and Humanist Society, where we discussed how someone who's coming from a purely secular perspective to the matter of ethics and legality should look at the issue of abortion. And that was actually a very interesting debate. And I'm very happy to say, actually, the president of the society, when we organized that event, ended up becoming pro-life and went to the March for Life in February or January. So there's always something comes out of that. Silver linings, as it were.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but our response has been great from most people at the university, except for a very small minority, but very vocal, very angry, very shouty minority of the establishment of student politics that think that they're entitled to rule over the whole campus and decide whose speech is worth protecting and whose is not.
Yeah, well, obviously our next question, you've slightly touched on it there, but universities are expected to be places where free speech is protected and encouraged, and ideas can be discussed. But there has been growing reports from a lot of pro-life university societies in the UK that they've kind of been censored in different forms. Do you feel at all that that's happened to Life Society Edinburgh, or your society's been subjected to any unfair treatment compared to other societies?
Well, I think, yes, of course. When we were denied our re-affiliation 2 years ago with USA, that was a clear case of discrimination. And it's particularly damning because USA knows that without being affiliated with them, we cannot access university material, we cannot access university classrooms, we cannot access Freshers Week. So there's all these different tools that other societies use to reach people, to create debate, to bring speakers that we are not allowed to really jump into. So we've kept things going with our volunteers, and again, the chaplaincy is having really great in that, and we've been able to hold some small events. But in the wider university, the one that's led again by this very small but very loud minority of angry students from the left, we've really had a lot of trouble, and I mean, it comes to show that free speech is very much under threat. I mean, Edinburgh University has got a whole building dedicated to serving the Chinese communist regime, one of those Confucius institutes that the government of China is spreading across Europe. And so because of that as well, I know that some people who've tried to organize events related to Hong Kong or Taiwan have been told no from higher places. In our case, in the case of the Life Society, all our events have always been welcoming. We've always been very sensible with how we approach this issue. We've had an event, actually, almost had an event a few years ago with the Feminist Society as well, though they pulled out in the last minute. I think there is in the student body quite a lot of people that are desperately trying to get that sense of free debate, of open conversation at university. That's why people end up coming here anyway. But again, that's all completely thwarted by the action of a minority that are very angry, very ignorant, and unable and unwilling to be challenged in their deeply held convictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're very loud as well. I just to divert a wee bit. I know you've got your lovely suit on. I thought, did I just catch the March for Life wristband on your wrist?
Oh yes, yes.
Complimenting your outfit. I love it. Great fashion, Joy.
Yeah, well, it's important to look fashionable even when you're in lockdown. As you
Exactly.
guys showcase.
Yeah, pro-life and fashionable at the same time. Absolutely. So my next question, as a man, obviously, who's outspoken and, you know, really
wait, did you just assume my gender here?
Eden, no.
Sorry, can I say that? If not, we can cut it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What are your preferred pronouns, by the way? I forgot to ask at the beginning of this.
Well, I don't know. They change every day. I think you may call me His Royal Highness today, but we can
I will do. Okay, well, Your Royal Highness, as a man, as a he, him, who's outspoken against abortion, obviously taking a stand against it, how would you respond to the oh so commonly thrown out argument that men will never experience pregnancy and therefore should not have an opinion on abortion?
Well, there's three things I would like to say to that. The first one is that that's really non sequitur. I mean, all social debates, of course, are a combination of people who are more directly touched by the discussion at hand, and people who have a critical, objective view standing from the outside. And you know, no one would dare say that because I'm not a pensionist or I'm not a retired man, I cannot have an opinion on whether the government is using the public funds wisely on this, or if I was in the 18th century and you know, the classical argument that if I was not a slave owner, I would have no right to tell anyone whether holding slaves is a good policy or not. But given that aside, which I think, I mean, that's an unbeatable argument, I do feel for people who throw out this line of you cannot speak about it because you're a man. And I think that behind it lies a very valid point that I will never be able to understand completely what a woman facing this decision is thinking. But there's two things I would like to say to that. The first one is that while I will never be able to know exactly what's going through the mother's heart and mind in that particular point, I will know what goes on through the father's. And I myself, you know, in much earlier days, having had a pregnancy scare, you know, the thought process there that everyone has is very valid, and it's a valid concern. But just because I'm not a woman, quite clearly, does not mean that I cannot, first of all, empathize with the people who are making the decision. And secondly, despite my emphasis in the fact that I'm not a woman, I can understand what goes on in the situation, because it takes two to tango. And it takes two to raise a child, and it takes two to work through these things. But the second issue, which I think is much more important actually, is that a woman is mostly not alone when she's making this decision. And I would dare venture say, having looked at the statistics, that mostly these decisions are not made freely by women. And I have volunteered outside of abortion clinics, both in Spain and the UK, praying and helping people who win, and you know, giving them information on what resources they can access to not make that life destroying decision. And when you get to the core of it, you see a lot of abusive relationships that end up in abortion clinics. You see a lot of shame parents that don't want their kids to ruin their lives with a pregnancy. You see a lot of societal pressure that goes on. And so, if anything, I think that it's very important that I, as a man, precisely because so many other men are telling women what to do with their bodies, their bosses, their abusive partners, the non-abusive partners who are just, you know, scared to be a man and raise a child, their parents, their grandparents, all these men in their lives are telling them to abort. It's very important that we trust women and we tell them, no, actually, you're just as strong as millions and millions, billions, probably trillions of women before you have been. And not only that, but we can help you and we'll be there for you. And if the only role models that are male in your life right now are abusive, the answer to get out of that will not be to kill your unborn child. It will be, first of all, to seek independence from all that, and then to seek for better men. And I can recommend you wonderful priests, wonderful parents, wonderful friends that will help you in that. So going back to your question, I am a man. I'm very happy to be a man. I think that there's wonderful things that come with being a man, um, and but one of the things that comes with it as well is being able to empathize with women in my life. And I know that if I love someone, and as I love my friends, as I love my family members, if I love them and they're making a mistake, I want to be able to tell them why they're making that mistake.
Yeah. So what kind of advice then would you give to any other sort of young man or just young person in general who may be pro-life but they're kind of too afraid to actually come out and say it?
Well, I think, of course, the first thing, I mean, I'm much too young to give much advice to people, but the first thing that I would say to any man who is personally pro-life, but it's the woman's choice, or personally pro-life, but is that be consistent, you know, and be a man. And if you are in a position where you're risking getting your girlfriend, or you know, maybe not even your girlfriend, maybe just a friend, pregnant, and you know that you're not going to be able to raise that child or to take care of that woman and to be the man in this situation, then just stop doing what you're doing, because you're going to be put in a position where you have to either compromise your values or really have a tough time that you can avoid. So before you start preaching to other people or helping other people, help yourself. It's not that hard, you know, just either get married or you know, really zip up your pants. It's not that complicated. So having gotten that out of the way, I think the second thing I would say is, you know, do not be afraid of being pro-life. It's completely crazy that we live in a society in the West where thinking that mothers and their babies ought to be together instead of being separated by a surgeon with poison. That's not hate speech. That's not hateful, and that's particularly not crazy. And even if it feels like we are a small minority, in the grand scheme of things in the entire world, I think most people would find that a very natural position to take. And so once you have gotten your life in order, and again, that's very important because you don't want to be a hypocrite, but once you have got your things in order, just stand out up there and tell women in your life that if they ever need you, that you're going to be there for them. And look for pregnancy centers around you and go there and volunteer. And when the topic comes up, do not shy away, but actually, you know, share what you think with other people. Um, do so gracefully, of course. I think that's a very important thing that perhaps, in my experience, the females in the pro-life side have gotten better at than the men. In that I think that there's a certain type of understanding and in the speech, but at the same time, be courageous. And what a lot of people gain from being graceful and kind, they lose in being, you know, actually open about what they think. So do not be afraid of being pro-life. It's the normal position to take. It's the natural position to take. It's a virtuous position to take. And I think that if one believes in that, as I do, it's the godly position to take. So I think that's what I would tell them. Really, do not buy into the lies of the modern world. You know, it's not worth it. And I have had so many interactions with people that have left me thinking, wow, I'm just so glad I was able to speak to you, because I know that when it comes to it, if it ever comes to it, that you're going to at least have had one person to tell you that maybe what society is telling you is not that there is to it.
Thank you so much for that. Our final question is, who is your pro-life hero?
Oh, well, I would love to say my mother here to begin with. Again, as I said earlier, it was her own, in a way, tragic circumstances and journey that led me to be more understanding of this whole situation. But then, if I may add a second one to my mom, and you know, it doesn't come to the detriment of her. She is my hero now and always. I would say a saint from Spain, San Jose Maria Escrivá, the founder of the Opus Dei, because I think that his example and the examples of so many 20th century saints in telling us how to live both in the world and tell people that actually, you know, the society that we have created through financial neoliberalism and progressivism is not all there is to it. While they live in the society and they tell that, they also live fantastic, moral, virtuous lives that we can all find inspiration in. So my mother, first and foremost, but a very close second, San Jose Maria Escrivá. I'm not entirely sure how, if he is very well known in Great Britain, or how would you pronounce him in English?
I know of him, yes.
Yeah, San Jose Maria Escrivá. I don't know. We'll just pronounce it that way, and hopefully people will.
Just while we're on this as well, I just have an extra question to add into the mix. Obviously, me and Eden are just from here, so we don't actually know that much about abortion law in different countries. What is it in Spain, and what is the kind of like the pro-life, pro-abortion attitudes there?
Yeah, well, Spain, very sadly and very quickly, has become a secular progressive nation that has shifted its earlier views on abortion. So I think it would have been completely unthinkable to push abortion through in Spain for most of her history, but very recently that's changed. So abortion was legalized relatively recently in comparison with the UK, but it's not, the time span is quite different. So whereas in the UK, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's legal for no reason necessary other than the mental well-being of the mother until 25 weeks, is that right?
24, so pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and in Spain, that's until 12. So it's first trimester, relatively free, no reason given abortion, and after that, until 24 for disabilities and life-threatening conditions. And I do know that after that, like in the UK, until after birth is a very, very tiny few circumstances where that would be allowed, but those are much more restricted than they would be here. And I think that there's not been a case of that in a very, very long time. So sadly, we have thousands of abortions which are carried out in clinics, not in hospitals as in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole culture around it has become one that of silence, essentially. There's no debate about it. It all was carried through without any debate. And the earlier opposition that really was galvanized when the bill came through, and which saw people from the churches and civil society, and even some people from the Islamic community, which of course through immigration has become quite large in Spain. They all came together to fight that at the beginning, and it's been very sad that through inaction that's gone down. So hopefully we will see a revival of the pro-life position, but at the very least in the meantime, I do know that we have such a strong network of passionate pro-life people, that there's so many pregnancy centers, so many convents that have made their mission after the legalization of abortion to help women in need.
Yeah, that's such a lovely insight, Joseph. So thank you so much for joining us and answering all of our questions. It was greatly appreciated. And thank you everyone for joining the interview. So I would recommend,
so much.
Lastly, I would just lastly recommend to go and follow Life Society Edinburgh on social media.
Thank you very much.
If I may add just onto that, if you happen to be in Edinburgh watching this, or you're coming to Edinburgh University next year, which you absolutely should do, join us. You can also look for me on Facebook. I'll be very happy to answer any questions at all, or through the Life Society Edinburgh page. But thank you so much for having me today. I hope that some insights were given somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Once again. Bye.
Bye.